Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I want to say how wonderful it is to be in front of a friendly bunch of faces like this. I don't often get to speak in front of such a wonderful crowd, and it's always comfortable when you can. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I'm also very proud to represent Pfizer and the biopharmaceutical industry, because I think the work that we do together with policymakers throughout the world is really important, very, very important. And there's so much more work to be done, and there are a lot of threats to our industry and what we're trying to do, and we need to work together to face many of those problems. I also want you to know that I have a great deal of respect for the work that you all do. The multiple challenges that you face are across the board, from transportation to budget issues to healthcare issues and many other things in between. The 4 years that I spent in state government in Rhode Island during Governor Lincoln Almond's second term has provided me with a tremendous perspective that I think has been extremely helpful for me. And I understand better how these challenges that we all face work in providing good health care, innovative and life-saving treatments, and in ways that governments and individuals can ultimately afford. There's a great deal of activity in the area of healthcare reform today. In this next 10 or 15 minutes, I'm hoping to address one important piece which often gets lost in the shuffle. I refer to the innovative treatments that come from the biopharmaceutical industry, and we do this in collaboration with major medical centers and academic centers across the globe. Too often, our products, medicines and devices and other treatments that we develop are seen only as a cost and not a benefit. So if you're a patient, you understand that that's not exactly the case. Or they're seen as they need to be seen as a cost saver for the overall healthcare system. And that's one of the points that I'll try to make here in a moment. So I have the clicker someplace. I put it in a safe spot. This is census data, very interesting census data, and it's an excellent proxy for the aging of the society. With roughly 78 million baby boomers now beginning to retire, the kinds of pressures that we're going to feel going forward are really substantial. This just plots the number of centenarians, those 100 years of age and older in the population from 1900 to 2000. And you can see this incredible increase in the number of centenarians. And again, it's a proxy for the aging of the United States, and of course this is mirrored throughout the world. Medical and biopharmaceutical innovation depends on a vibrant and healthy ecosystem. Now, various organizations. You'll have to pardon me because as a scientist and a biologist, I always revert to words out of biology like ecosystem and all, but I think it's an apt description nonetheless. Many different groups are involved in the complex and uncertain process of creating novel medical knowledge, then linking this to particular diseases and patients, inventing and optimizing new medicines and devices, and testing, manufacturing, and distributing these new medicines to patients who need them. The groups who participate in these various tasks include universities and laboratory-based researchers, hospital clinicians working in research, small biotechnology and spin-out companies, and suppliers. But they also include regulatory agencies, prescribers, payers, insurers, distribution networks, and pharmacies. Every part of this system needs to be operating in some sort of a well-working order for innovation in this country to flourish. The biopharmaceutical industry has links to all sections of the innovation ecosystem. We are all part of the overall picture, and we both foster and depend on other organizations with which we interact. We can't innovate without the rest of the ecosystem, and they can't innovate without us. Legislators and policy professionals are the only other group that have influence in interactions with all parts of this innovation ecosystem. But unlike industry, medical innovation doesn't consume all of your day-to-day activities, and it may be less clear how the different elements interrelate and depend on each other. All too often we see legislation that aims to support one part of this important ecosystem being passed alongside laws that damage and constrain other parts that are equally important. Tax credits don't support innovation if they are introduced alongside major constraints on product prices and revenues. In addition, the large biopharmaceutical companies are good indicators of the overall health of medical innovation. There is no point pretending that job losses across the biopharmaceutical industry aren't a problem if there's an increase in the number of NIH grants, for instance, or university spinouts. All parts of the ecosystem are essential, and legislation must approach this subject of innovation accordingly. I'll return to that point in a moment. Now, innovations have led to some tremendous successes, and you'll see in this slide just very simply shows the number of cardiovascular deaths that are plotted throughout 1900 to 2000 and beyond. And you can see in the middle of the 1900s this drop in death rates. This is obviously a result of medical innovation, cardiovascular products like lipid-lowering drugs and blood pressure medications. Down the bottom of the screen, you'll see the numbers for cancer and this inexorable climb over the same period of time, but a leveling off, largely through innovative new treatments. But much, much more needs to be done, obviously. When you look at diseases of the blood, this offers a wonderful example, I think, of what we're talking about here. You can't possibly read this, and it's not meant to be read. But these investments have led to improved outcomes. If you look at the top of the slide, 100 years ago, these were considered diseases of the blood. About 60 years ago, they were divided into leukemia and lymphoma, as an example. And then now today, there are dozens of leukemias and dozens of lymphomas. And this number is only going to continue to grow as our understanding of the science is increased over time. This leads to better, more effective medicines, but this also leads to more cost of the development of drugs. Yet, as you know, cancer still exacts a huge toll on Americans and through citizens throughout the world, and much, much more needs to be done in this area. So where does all this innovation come from is a really important question. And this shows NIH versus biopharmaceutical spending and how a big contribution of the private sector makes and how consistent this investment has been over time. If you look at this slide on the left-hand side, industry R&D spending is roughly double the amount of money that the NIH invests in research and development. That's really very, very important. It's also broken down into non-pharma biotech, which is on the top, which is about $15 billion, and pharmaceutical spending is about $50. This is a very important slide and a very important message, because we cannot develop new medicines without this massive investment that comes from the National Institutes of Health. This is what makes this country great, is that we put this kind of investment, public investment, into research and development for the development of new theories, new molecules, new treatment paradigms. But none of this happens without the massive investment that comes from the biopharmaceutical industry in parallel. To take things from the bench top all the way to clinical settings.